Today we'll be breaking down Cathie Wood's strategies going forward, whether it's with Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. Take a look at all that and also where the market might be trending. And it's going to be a good one. My name's Paul Barrett. Welcome back into Tech Path. Thanks again for stopping in on the live stream today. If you're not subscribed to the channel, or if you just found this because of the live, great. Thanks so much. Hit that little bell right now. It's going to give you notifications that way. So when we do these live streams, you'll get notified and you can be right in the middle of it. I do want to thank our sponsor, and that's Coinbase. If you guys are looking to get into crypto trading for your very first time, and you finally found a video and you're trying to understand how to get started, Coinbase is your place to get going. You can do a couple of things over there. Just join. You sign up, you'll get up to $200 in crypto as a credit. Use our link down below. It does help kind of get the thing going. And of course, Coinbase, one of the most trusted names out there in crypto. Let's go over into a couple of topics today. A lot has been happening this week. And when you think about the political ramifications of where Bitcoin is today, where crypto in general, what's happening with the ETFs, you can start to see a lot of these puzzle pieces starting to come together. Bitcoin ETFs approval, a psychological turning point. This is coming from Goldman Sachs. A couple of points in the article here. Let me kind of zoom in on that for you guys a little bit. The ETF approval in the US, January was a big psychological turning point for crypto. I believe it was, but I think the bigger turning point, even though Bitcoin's ETF was a huge one, was the about face that we've seen in the political format. So, and we'll get into all of that because there's some very key things that you need to know in today's video to kind of understand how to trade this market. Other things to look at from his vantage point, clients typically just focus on Bitcoin and Ethereum. That's why you can see a positive read on the ETH ETFs in terms of others. I think we could be positive, but I think it's too early to say. This is something I've talked about here this week, and that is we're going to start to get a little bit of a read, much like this here from Goldman Sachs, but also I think from BlackRock, Ark, et cetera, Fidelity, Van Eck, and so on, of what the appetite is for these ETFs as we start to see these S1 filings come through and we actually get an approval. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty different story than I think what we saw in Hong Kong when the ETFs were approved over there for Ethereum. So be on the watch out there. SEC now setting tomorrow as deadlines for its ETF issuers to submit S1 forms. This, of course, is a big deal because this is what sets the ball in motion for actually getting an ETF launched. Announcement came day after BlackRock, obviously we know, yesterday filed their updated S1. Two sources familiar told the block SEC would review and comment on the filings after the draft submission. This is a big deal because this is quite a bit different in terms of how the SEC has been dealing with it. And remember that these approvals came from not necessarily the SEC. It was just they did not deny it, and then their administrative staff let that go through, hence the approvals. Now we're getting into the real, I think, meat of the matter, which is where we'll start to see the SEC engaging. I want to go to a clip real quick because this is Eric Balchunas from Bloomberg, and he gets into a little bit about why these are so powerful. Take a look.
It's okay. ETFs are so good. That's why I dedicated my whole career to them. This is a powerful vehicle. It's robust. It can handle anything because when you go in an ETF, you bring in the smartest, biggest, most liquid market makers, the most trusted asset managers who are not messing around. And all they want to do is give you something where what you buy it, it's close to what the underlying is worth. Like buying a car on the Kelley Blue Book that's right close to the value of what the Blue Book value is. And that's why we were always for it. And so when you start putting these coins, these other coins into the ETF, you get into a debate on whether the coin itself has merit. But the ETF can handle it. You could probably put like, what's the one that Joe Biden just came out? You could probably put that in ETF. I'm telling you, ETFs, they'll figure it out. But there is a point where even I would be like, I don't think that should be ETFized. So I have a point. But the ETF could handle most anything.
Eric's been on the show many times. We've had him, and these guys are, I would say, the aces out there in terms of understanding ETFs and how they work. The one thing that we've often wondered is why, and we didn't see necessarily enough of a run-up to understanding that we were going to get an ETF approval for Ethereum. That was the one that I think was a little bit of a blue herring that kind of came across. Some other things that are happening that could affect not only the political landscape, but also the investment architecture that's going on right now. And that is EU's elections could hint a little bit of a future direction for crypto regulations. This is a Bitfinex analyst saying a couple of points here. Their parliamentary elections represent a regulatory wildcard for cryptocurrency sector, with potential crackdown for supportive motions depending on these voting outcomes. I don't know that that's necessarily the case from what I've seen. They are claiming here that a right-wing shift could lead to a stricter crypto control, while a pro-crypto outcome might accelerate supportive regulations like MiCA. I think this is the key thing that we'll continue to see. And remember, all of this timing, because stablecoins go into effect in June here within the MiCA regulation environment, and you have all of this happening here in the United States. We've seen all of the FIT bill come through, SAB 121. Obviously, we'll see stablecoins coming up, and we have some other things hitting on it as well. I want to go over to another clip. I think that was pretty much it. Yeah. Oh, there was actually one more piece here. The upcoming elections are crucial. This is a piece that I think is important for implementation of the regulation. They're aiming to create a unified regulatory framework for cryptos across the EU. This is something that's important that I think, because it aligns with what could be happening here in the US within the next few months, especially as we get a lot of these bills passed. If you take a look at this clip, this goes into a little bit about how the political landscape is affecting voters here in the US. So take a look.
And then Trump started to say, hey, you're pro crypto, you got to vote for me. And it's a razor thin race. You do the math, it's not hard to see that. I think what they saw was that young people are into this, and young people are polling more towards Trump, and that's an audience they thought they had in the bag. So like the more reason they would give them to go away from the Dems is like, they're probably like, why would we do that? Because if you're anti-crypto, you're not voting that way. You're probably voting for Biden. It's probably, or Trump, but it's not shaping your vote. But if you're pro-crypto, that may actually change your vote. Like there's enough single issue pro-crypto people to move the needle a little, because there's millions of people who own it. So even if 10%, that's 100,000 people, that could be a state, I think they just got lucky that they were filed in an election year, I think.
Interesting. I think this is a little different situation that's lining up. And the interesting thing that we'll play into here is Biden's position, because there is a little bit of a shift of change here. However, one thing that you have to look at is the amount of money that's coming into these PACs. So here's A16Z. They're ramping up their political push, another $25 million going into the super PAC Fair Shake. If you look at Fair Shake, and these are the PAC donors, I'm going to just kind of run down through these. These are not updated too. So, but you've got Coinbase in there, Ben Horowitz from Menlo Park, Andreessen, that's of course A16, Jump, Crypto, Coinbase, and you can kind of see there's the Winklevoss twins, of course, Gemini, 2.5 million, so 5 million there. Fred Wilson coming in, Union Square. So a lot of Silicon Valley, typical high roll money. Likelihood is, as we start to see these updates on the amount of money coming in, it's going to be considerably more. Could be in the hundreds and hundreds of millions coming in to these races. This is going to start to put a lot of pressure through the summer. And I think with the situation with what's happening with the White House, they themselves are also kind of reframing their whole narrative. In fact, here's a story right here. Headline reads, Biden's campaign is ramping up crypto industry outreach in a surprising tone shift. This is interesting. You've got Joe Biden, re-election campaign, now beginning to outreach to cryptocurrency industry players, seeking guidance on crypto community and policy moving forward. This is a complete pivot or about face. So it's a significant shift. Part of its outreach to the re-election team is called several crypto experts, including some industry players Biden rebuffed on previous occasions. And source this, this is a thing that typically happens with administration. We saw that with Musk and what was happening in the EV race. They kind of position very lightly, and then they figure out who their power plays are, and then they kind of bring them in that way. So, when he called me, we had to, put him on hold for a minute, but, we got back to that a little bit later. So anyway, let's go over to this clip real quick, because I want to break into a little bit about the advisors that are out there right now in the ETH space, especially for these ETFs, because this is going to be moving into a different kind of animal than the Bitcoin ETFs. So take a look.
The ETH people don't love me because I once referred to ETH as small potatoes compared to Bitcoin, and I have not. And then I use the metaphor, because everybody's like, oh, after the spot Bitcoin ETF came up, it's like, what about ETH? What about ETH? And I'm like, you're asking me to care about like the opening band after the headliner. I don't know if people can explain it quickly, because remember, an advisor has to be able to take what you just told them and then tell a client confidently. That's why some smart beta products sometimes were tricky with like quantitative strategies. They couldn't re-explain it. I'm working now to see like what people would, what's a one-liner, because Bitcoin's digital gold, very easy, done. ETH a little trickier, but I do think that ETH has some qualities that are unique. And if they can be explained and exploited, it could work. They could find some buyers. But I would say that if ETH can get beyond 20% of the assets of Bitcoin ETFs, that would be shocking.
All right. Well, we're going to hold that clip because I think Balchunas may get shocked. But remember, you look at ETH. Really, you have to break it down to very simple metrics. And he is right to get into understanding, these kinds of investors, because they're not diving into this stuff, from a detail standpoint or even from a technological standpoint in reality. But ETH makes money. It has revenue. It has profit. Those things make a lot of sense because most investors are looking at dividends. Most investors understand, the quarterly reports and the earnings of companies. In fact, that's what they camp on. So I think that's all you have to do as an advisor. Just simply say, guys, here's a revenue engine. They make profit. This is their staking model. It's done. That, I think, is the easiest model to explain out there. ETHs have the 3 pitches that could hook Wall Street. There's some guy, they're already thinking about this right here. So right here, as the network empowering future of finance, much easier to understand for Wall Street investors. Thielen noted also ETH has lost many users in recent network upgrades, a little bit slower because of the tech side. The fact that Ethereum generates minuscule revenues relative to its market cap does not make it a viable, sufficiently cash flow producing investment. That, I think, will be challenged in a big way. And then, of course, you have this piece right here, decentralization of all kinds. People, I don't know that they're really ready for decentralized or even understanding what decentralized is. But I do think that they'll start to understand how revenues work, and that's where things will start to shift quite a bit. So it will be I'm going to just do a prediction. I think it will do much better than a lot of what Wall Street is anticipating in terms of an ETH ETF. Granted, you have to think about the companies that are going to get behind this. This will be Ark, this will be BlackRock, etc. There's a lot of opportunity here for sure. This goes into our next portion of the video, which talks a little bit more about Cathie Wood. Remember, we did this video yesterday, I think it was yesterday, and we broke down a little bit of what Cathie Wood was saying in reference to ETH versus Bitcoin. Watch this clip.
Last question. It's a big one. Bitcoin or Ethereum?
In terms of what?
What would you invest in if you only invested in one?
Oh, Bitcoin, hands down. No.
All right, so there you go. This was the thing that we kind of touched on yesterday, and I don't understand it as much, because obviously I look at her actions and where she's investing. But I do understand the speculative asset. Obviously, it's a big part of where they're going. If you look at this article right here, chooses Bitcoin over ETH, hands down. This was the interview we just showed. Hands down, her choice. And then she argued that no other crypto comes close to the potential and significance. I would agree with that. But Wood believes that Bitcoin could capture a significant portion of the global monetary, potentially as much as 20%. There are some things there that I do think will be possible. The key thing, though, is how quickly something can ramp up once that people understand it, kind of like the internet. There was a time in early days of both the internet protocol, of what was being built, if you think about the early 90s, many people did not understand it, but they didn't really understand how it was going to be used. Then it was all at once. That's where I think Ethereum could be. She sees Bitcoin as an insurance policy. I agree with that for countries and a little bit of individuals who are looking at, purchasing power, eroded wealth, inflation, etc. That's probably the biggest, but that's a speculative asset. Those are the kind of things that we do see. Now, this is another clip that will go in a little bit deeper on this, and it maybe could change your tune a little bit. Listen to what she had to say.
And of course, here we are at 21 basis points. We're not going to make any money on this. And so our original idea was to take a percentage of the profits and give them to core developers. The problem is we're not making any money. So that would be disingenuous, wouldn't it be? Right?
I mean, it'd be your choice.
What X% of zero is nothing.
You can make a loss.
No. The much better idea, and what we are doing, is to use a percentage of our revenues in our private funds.
Nice.
That's a much better idea, and no one is doing percent of revenues.
Is this the first time you've announced that?
Yes. You heard it here first.
Thank you.
That was a huge statement. So what you saw in this report is quite a bit different than what she said on screen, right there within that clip. And that's the whole point behind this, is they're talking, to simplify it, they're not making money on the ETF for Bitcoin, but they're taking revenue opportunities here and then plowing it back into their innovation fund, meaning they're not making profit there. They need that, and some people look at this as a loss leader in retail. You look at those kind of things in the investment world. There's also those kinds of draws that bring in investors that open up an opportunity in other categories. So with all of that, look at her portfolio. And I'm looking over at the venture fund right here, and you can kind of start to see. We're looking at most of these, that Mythical Games, which we've talked about before. You also have, there's Mythical Games right there. Coinbase is in here, Robinhood is in here, etc. And we've seen more and more innovations. And I think that's the thing. There's DraftKings, another one that is playing into that. This is the thing that, there's Unity. This is the thing that I think we're going to see more and more, especially as investment advisors like a Wood and Ark and others start to really get a picture of the framework and the impact that all these other companies will potentially have in this space. So that's a big one for sure. Listen, if you guys like these kind of videos where we break things down, make sure and hit the like button right now. Just smash it right now. Also, if you have some questions, drop some in over on the side. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can and kind of break that out for you guys. I want to go into this a little bit because this is the 21 shares. You can kind of see right here, just the list. Look at all the ETFs that are in here, or ETPs, I should say. Aave, Algorand. I mean, you can kind of see this is a big, big part of where they're going with it. And I think that in itself continues to kind of show that we're seeing a lot more interest in innovation. That's the big one right here. If you look at 21 shares and just look at assets under management, Solana leaves the rate place right now and holding in right now at almost 2.5% on the fees and almost $1 billion right there on assets under management. So pretty big in comparison. I want to go to another clip real quick and take a look at a little bit about whether or not Solana is and could potentially be the next ETF. Take a look.
And so we now have Ethereum ETFs arrived, and
Shocking.
Disgrace. And it,
And then I cannot tell you, I was on the phone with our COO, and he was like, he screamed when he saw this come across, like, what?
do you think we're at risk now of getting a number, maybe hundreds of shitcoin ETFs, which will confuse the market?
I don't think so. I don't think the wirehouses will accept. There could be two or these two, maybe Solana. What I do think is, and we have some of these, that private funds are going to sift through the thousands out there and probably find, 20 or 30.
20 or 30. That's the number right there. Whether you believe that or not, the idea is that I think Wall Street's eyes are opened up. They now understand what the pivot was. Part of this, I think, has been around the regulatory alignment, what we've seen in the lobbying that has supported all this, and it has shifted the landscape of not only the regulators, but also politicians, which, as we know, guides a lot of where we're seeing Wall Street. And of course, BlackRock, I think, is going to be right there in the middle of it. Now, when you look about Solana or ETH or, the challenges that the industries are going to be facing in terms of, too much noise out there in the ETF world, there's a lot of ETFs out there. So I think that's just going to be one of the things. And the question has always been education. How do you let people know? We talked a little bit more about what was happening with the ETH side of things, but of course, Bankless was kind of trying to say, hey, this is the explanation out there. These are the things that you would sell the Ethereum to investment advisor. And then you had, totally kind of coming in and doing a little bit of trolling, saying Solana's narrative is dead. Simple. It's digital Ethereum. So I like the fact that there's still that competitiveness between these. And it just shows you that innovation is still at the core of what's happening right now. Remember, this is still very early. We are still looking at really the evolution of what the next reign of, I think, kind of the future of finance is going to be on Wall Street. Other things that are happening right now is this right here. You've got the Financial Services Committee coming in and doing a subcommittee on digital assets. Digital assets. This is the Financial Technology and Inclusion hearing. All right. This is coming in on June 5th. So that's next week. So more acceleration on understanding. I anticipate we're probably going to see quite a few of these starting to play out. And just remember that this is a very heated race, especially for the Senate right now. So you've got, I was looking at a little bit of the Coinbase site, and the amount of politicians that are in a position, which I thought would be either neutral or against, I was surprised to see so many of them that actually have spun positively. So a lot of things happening right now in the space. As I said, make sure and drop some questions in over on the side. This is a next little, I think, gotcha to a certain extent, coming in from the SEC. SEC Commissioner, this is Hester Peirce, proposes that cross-border sandbox is kind of a working zone, not really rolling things out, but understanding things. Software developers and engineers use it all the time, but U.S. and crypto industry. So basically, U.S., UK, let's work together, kind of look and see at what we could use here. The interesting thing here is the proposal. And what their proposal is they're going to allow firms to conduct the same sandbox activities under the same regulatory requirements, both in the UK and the United States. That's one part. Shows that even with clearly aggressive SEC, there's dissenting voices against the regulation by enforcement approach. This has always been Peirce's position. And the commissioner also revealed that she tends to be more of a beach than a sandbox regulator. These include requirements set forth by the SEC to firm and begin operations in the country, allowing participants to choose their regulatory conditions. So I don't understand this, because this is the SEC. They're the ones that are supposed to be doing these submissions. They are essentially the experts in these areas, and yet to have really rolled these things out. They were able to do it with SAB 121. SAB 121, of course, got overturned, and they're passing that through. So why are we not getting those kinds of efforts in this part of the regulatory alignment, especially as we're starting to get clarity coming in from Congress? So that, I think, is a little bit of a half-hearted effort here. Here's Eleanor Terrett kind of breaking it all down, if you want to follow Eleanor Terrett from Fox Business. And what Hester was proposing: limited amount of business in the U.S., time in the sandbox limited to 2 years. There's a FinHub that's involved here. This is good in terms of an outline, but again, these are outlines, not directives, because this is the thing I think we need, which is speed to be able to get to the market much faster. A couple other tweets I want to hit on right here is Ryan Salkos coming in from Masari. If Joe Biden is smart, he'll appoint Hester Peirce as the SEC chair and demote Gensler. He's got a thing for Gensler in a big way. But Dems would still hold a 3-2, but Hester would at least set the agenda for the rest of her term. I don't know that that's necessarily a great thing. I mean, she's kind of been on the fence. Maybe she's on the fence because she's not in power, she's not in that position, or maybe there's something else. I just don't know. I can't get a read, because if we are going to see these kind of advancements, especially in the regulatory alignment, once that you have that coming in from Congress, it really should be execution for the SEC and making it much more simple to do. So we'll see how all that plays out. All right, let's play into a couple other things. What else do we have here? What else do we have? I think that was it. Yeah, that was pretty much it. Let's go over to the poll real quick. We'll get some questions. I want to see the poll real quick. All right, will Biden veto SAB 121? Crypto by Monday deadline? No, he's going to let it slide. Everybody's on it. 76. I think you're right, too. This is the deadline, too. Monday is the date to watch. And based on what we're seeing coming in from the administration, unless they do an about-face, which I don't necessarily think is going to happen, you're going to see, I think, the non-veto, which, of course, really starts to set things up for a big move. What do we have here? All right. Saleh says, as Larry Fink said, tokenization is the next generation of finance. Totally. I think we played that clip when he was at, it was one of the WEF conferences that he was at. David Lee says, your thoughts, please buy Bitcoin or ETH or Solana, which will give me the most return. All right. So I don't give financial advice, but I'm going to tell you what I do. And first of all, I own all three, but I look at the investment opportunity in the ones that I think are going to have the multi-X. Multi-X right now, Ethereum's going to have some of a multi-X. I think Solana still is a little bit more of the play only because there's multi-X, but I still like Ethereum, and it's one of my biggest bags. I'm big into those. I like Avalanche. There's a handful of others. Chainlink are great. Listen, there's a lot to choose from right now if you do your research, depending on what you like. Real world assets, tokenization, follow those trails, you'll get to some good stuff. Demo Gensler, yeah, Paul launched token. No way, man. Comey ruined Hillary's run from 26. Gensler, yeah, I don't know if he's the new Comey, but could he become too much of a political baggage for, he could be a problem for is Warren. Because remember, you got John Deaton running against Warren. That could still be a Senate seat that's up for grabs. So think about that. Matthew Singer says, she also sold NVIDIA at the worst time. No point. Right there. Murdoch says, XRP Army. Yeah, you guys are out there. I think that's a possibility too for an ETF, is XRP is not out of the game. What do we have? Any hope for ETH with staking? I doubt that we'll see it. The complexity of that, and also it will depend on how we see the regulatory alignment and whether or not we start to see those kind of elements within it. Eventually, yes, but I think right now, no. Yeah. Curtis, I'm such a Solana shill. Yeah. Well, don't worry about it. You guys, if you think I'm a Solana shill, the best thing to do is find an ETH shill, because I like Ethereum. Or maybe I'm an AVAX shill. I like AVAX or a Chainlink. Listen, I like technology. That's what I focus on. And that's it. It's very simple. SEC told spot ETF issuers get around draft for S1 forms in by Friday. So that's just going to be more, I think, that also pushes into the approval of these ETFs. This will be a key, maybe the next 2 weeks, because as we start to see this approval come in on these S1s, these launches will happen very quickly, and we will get a tone, I think, of how it's going to happen for Ethereum. Could this be the pump that breaks Ethereum into all-time highs? Let me know in the comments. Drop some down below. I always love to get you guys' feedback. If you're not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get into that right now. It's a great place to get additional content. And you can always reach out to me on X, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.